Hello, everyone. It is my very great pleasure to introduce Martin Medeiros, who's a student of mine many, many decades ago, who is now currently a professor both at Chabot College and several other Bay Area institutions. He has many accolades to his credit, which I hope will come out in our interview process. The purpose of creating this Canvas Hub, is to create some interest, excitement, and first-person experience with the field of economics. So without further ado, then I'll begin our questions and our interview process. Please tell us, Martin, how it was you felt about your preparation for college before you came to Chabot as a first-year student.
Well, the community college system itself is really important to me because it helped me a lot. Me growing up, I grew up in the Bay Area, and I was uh, not a very good student. I wouldn't say a very good student. I was um, behind my classmates from kindergarten through high school. I was in special ed classes. I had problems reading, and that really hindered my learning in elementary school and in high school, that sort of thing. And the community college system really helped me get up to speed because when I graduated from high school, I didn't really expect to go to college because I didn't expect to succeed because I was reading at about a seventh grade level, I would say, writing at about the same seventh grade level. And so what the community college system did for me was give me an opportunity to catch up. And I don't think I would be where I am without it. It gave me a great opportunity and a second chance to uh, get back what I didn't get initially. And so I feel a great debt to it. So this is one of the reasons why I like teaching at community college level, and especially Chabot, since that was the community college I went to.
Thank you very much. I think there are many of us who can relate, especially to your experience. And for all those people who doubt themselves, certainly this must be an inspiration for those people too. So thank you again. Um, could you possibly describe, or can you remember what your first time experience was with taking economics? And don't pull any punches because I know I was your first econ instructor. So be as destructive as you wish.
Yeah, I mean, if I went into a coma the first day took the econ class and I woke up now, it would be surreal because you were my instructor at the time. So this is I got to go back. This is about 1985, and I was like many people dreading it because I heard horror stories about economics in terms of being math phobia, having math phobia, thinking it's just too technical, and not really knowing what it's about. And the nice thing about economics and your class in particular was it was a pleasant surprise because it wasn't what I expected. It was more it was difficult. I mean, it was challenging, excuse me, but it was challenging in a way that college should be challenging, where it required me to start thinking about things that I didn't really know about and start uh, basically training myself to be a better decision maker. And the fact that the class was fast paced and I was able to survive it and then be able to understand it was gave me um, encouragement and courage to look at other classes that I feared but realized that the fear was not based on anything logical or based on reality itself. I should just give it a try with an open mind and do what I can. And so economics was my first class where the fear was basically brushed aside eventually. I'm very thankful that it was one of my earlier classes at Chabot because it made me be more um, it, a little more brave going forward. So my experience with the econ class, in particular yours, was it was eye opening and it showed me uh, what learning could really be. So I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, thank you very much. And of course, as your instructor, I get to share with them things that you probably would be too humble to share. And I recall vividly that in academic competitions, which I held in class,
Mhm.
you emerged as the victor, the very best person in my class. So yes, despite your seventh grade reading level, yeah, you can not only survive, but you were actually superior, the number one student in my class. So uh, leaving that area, what do economists actually do? I know you've worked widely in the areas that are ancillary to economics, but yet they were not pure economics. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, so going back from the last question, after your class, my interest in economics was sparked, and so after finishing up at Chabot, I got my AA, but then I transferred over to UC Santa Cruz, and I majored in economics, and I knew I wanted to work in the field, and so most jobs that require you to be an economist require you to have either a graduate degree or an advanced degree. And so what I did was I did something I think was smart at the time. I took an entry-level data entry job at Bank of America that was not in the economics field, but I felt that if I were on the inside, I could maybe work my way into the economics department. And while I was working at Bank of America in data entry, I was finishing up my graduate work at Cal State Hayward, now Cal State East Bay. And so I got my very first job at Bank of America as an economist, and I started to see how the sausage is made, so to speak, in terms of how economists actually do things. So I worked on a trading floor. And Bank of America at the time had the largest trading floor on the West Coast, and I supported the traders, bond traders, stock traders, with economic analysis. Economic data comes out, on a daily basis, and they need someone to maybe interpret it and give reports on it and give forecasts. So basically, that's what I did on a daily basis. I reported on economic data primarily on the United States. And it was fascinating working with other economists that covered different parts of the world, different industries. How did they formulate their forecasts? How did they inform people? And so I realized that there are many people who function as an economist in many different businesses, but aren't actually called economists, right? They do what economists do. They just may not have the title. So one thing I tell students is, you may be an economist without even knowing it.
I guess I fully understand that. You mentioned that you're doing forecasts in the United States. I know from private experience, having talked to you before, that you actually worked in China. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, so so Bank of America eventually moved their headquarters to North Carolina, and that was back in the late '90s. And I decided not to move with the bank, so I stayed in the Bay Area, and that's when I moved to teaching. And one of the things I wanted to do is also wanted to travel, and I found out that I could leverage my teaching with travel because there are lots of universities out there who desire foreign professors to come over and teach classes. In my case, economics. So my first opportunity was to teach two semesters in China, in Guangzhou, southern part of China. So I taught microeconomics, macroeconomics there, and that was my first time teaching outside of the United States, and to be in another completely different educational system, especially in the higher ed. I was My teaching style was kind of shock to their system. By the way, they didn't really know how to deal with someone like me, not because I was outrageous, it's just because I was very, very different. And it, I I had to adapt. So I started with my own style of teaching in China, and then I realized that uh, they needed a different way. So I was still me, but I started to do things differently. So that was an eye-opening experience teaching there. And what was also interesting is I was there in 2003, and that's when, if people don't realize, we had a mini pandemic in 2003 called SARS, and it started in Asia just like COVID did in China in particular. And so I got my first taste of a pandemic and teaching abroad in China, and it was fascinating to see how things move so quickly when you're dealing with a national emergency. You're in a new environment. So it was, I enjoyed it. It was 100% positive, and to this day, I'm still in contact with some students who I taught in China at the time.
Fascinating. You've hooked me on teaching styles. What was the normal teaching style in China while you were there, and how did that compare to your ways of teaching?
Well, it was there was virtually no back and forth between the professor and the students, and I kind of thrive on feedback from my students, and so I would ask open-ended questions and expect responses, and I was getting nothing, right? And it was difficult for me to uh, deal with that. It's almost like an entertainer, and the crowd is silent. But what I realized was a solution, or a remedy to that was developed by the students. What they did was they did want to ask questions, but they just didn't want to ask questions in class. So it turned out that they used my office hours as a way to have questions. So I had about 95 students in each class, taught two classes back to back on each day, 95 students in each class. And I had a line, it was like a line to In-N-Out Burger in my office hours of about 20, 30, almost 40 students deep. And my office hours is when they were going to ask me questions, one-on-one, that sort of thing. And so that was interesting to see how that developed. But by the end of the semester, they were actually starting to ask questions in class. And I could tell that there was um, uh, a good vibe from that. And so it was my teaching style being more interactive did not at first jive with the kind of the hidden wall between student and professor at the time. So I had to adapt, and they adapted. So I think we found a nice middle ground.
That is fascinating. I hope you carry that insight into our students who come from China to help them understand who they are and what you need to do for them.
Oh yeah,
Um,
you got to adapt your style.
so I'm not too sure you completely exploited the answer to the question, what do economists actually do?
Well, I mean, they do well. It depends upon the area of the economy that they're covering. So for me, I was a U.S. macroeconomist. So my job was to basically assess the health of the U.S. economy by analyzing economic data or economic indicators. And that's kind of in essence what an economist does on the most broad scale. Now, you could take the same approach and look at an economist who covers an industry. Let's say you cover the auto industry. You're still going to be covering broad macroeconomic indicators, but you're going to be also going to be covering industry specific indicators, something that assesses the health of the industry. So you're paying somebody to try to interpret it. So think of it as a doctor interpreting vital signs of a patient. And so it depends upon who the patient is and what data that you look at. So, but that's in essence what an economist does. There are variations of that. There are behavioral economists who get more into psychology in terms of how people make decisions. But from in kind of in the broader economic sense or in the business sense, an economist basically analyzes data that says something about the health of an industry, the economy, or a region.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And perhaps our final topic, unless you want to add to it, from your own personal experience, can you add some more things you have not already added that tell us how you may offer your students a special experience that perhaps other professors would not be able to offer?
Well, I know that my goal is to try to demystify economics, to lay it bare, so to speak, not to diminish it, but to make it more accessible, to make things more clear. And that's what my intention is. So I try to bring economics down to its bare bones. And my saying in the class is economics is simply the study of choice. That's all it is. So that is simple yet profound in my opinion, because uh, everybody makes choices. That means everybody uses economics. I just want people to use economics in a way that helps them make better choices. So just that understanding, I think, helps students a lot. And and I build from that. So that's the foundation everything is built upon in my class. And then students start to realize that, hey, you know what, I could do this too. So
Professor Medeiros, thank you very much for this interview. I am completely enraptured myself. I hope your other students will be also. I would love to actually continue this interview at some later date and explore some of the issues that you brought up and some ideas that you may have for solving some of the problems that students at Chabot and community colleges in general face. Again, thank you. Thank you for putting this together, and for what it's worth, Mr. Medeiros is responsible for all the technical content of all this, and I want to thank him personally for those efforts. Bye
my
for now.
pleasure.